Hello, I am Katie Wendelin and I am the Clinical Director of Youth Services at Access Counseling Services. I have been in the field for over 6 years. Counseling is my passion. I find so much joy in helping my clients make changes in their lives so that they can live their best life. I am very excited to talk to you today about empathy through the lens of social emotional learning. Could a greater miracle take place than for us to look through each other's eyes for an instant? I'm sure we all can agree that this world could use a little more empathy. What is empathy? Empathy is the ability to recognize, understand, and share the thoughts and feelings of someone else. It helps us with our relationships with others and making good decisions. Empathy is experiencing another person's point of view instead of just their own point of view and perspective. Empathy is seeing someone else's situation from their perspective and sharing their emotions. Empathy is beautiful. Empathy allows us to connect with others on a deeper level and helps us to understand what it is like to be in someone else's shoes. I'd like to take a minute for clarification. What is not empathy? Empathy can be confused with pity, sympathy, and compassion. It is important to notice the differences between these concepts and the engagement level with each concept. Pity is feeling bad at the distress someone else is feeling. Pity is often condescending. It can look like, I feel bad for you, or I see that you are suffering. There is no engagement in pity, just acknowledgement. Sympathy is feeling concern for someone and wishing they feel better or happier. Sympathy can look like, I care about your suffering or discomfort, and I wish you feel better. Sympathy has a bit more engagement and includes expressing care. Compassion is suffering alongside someone and actively desiring to alleviate their suffering. Compassion includes being very engaged and involved in alleviating suffering. Compassion can be a good thing, but left unchecked, it can lead to unhealthy boundaries and burnout. Empathy is the healthiest way to react to people's emotions and to connect with them. Let's look at how to show and feel empathy. First, we need to remember to listen. We need to turn off the thoughts in our heads, avoid being distracted, and give our attention and focus to the other person. Next, we need to resist the urge to fix. Many of you, I'm sure, identify yourself as a helper. Counselors and teachers often have that in common. When a student comes to you with a problem, we often go straight into fix-it mode. We need to avoid this. Take a step back and listen to their experience. If we go into fix-it mode too quickly, we often make assumptions about what a person is feeling. Next, acknowledge what you have heard. Sometimes, especially when people are experiencing negative emotions, words can get jumbled or they say things in a way they didn't mean. Tell them what you are hearing them say and make sure it is what they meant. Then ask questions about their experience. How are you feeling? Why is this important to you? Ask questions to better understand their perspective. Next, reflect back to them what you have heard. Sometimes, having someone else articulate what they are feeling is key to helping them process their emotions and situations. Lastly, check in with them. Validate their feelings and see how you can help. For students, it is important to teach them to identify the emotions that other people are feeling. Have them reflect on when they felt that feeling. For example, if a dog's friend died and they feel sad, encourage them to think of when they were sad. What was it like to be sad? Let's talk about empathy in the classroom and why it is important. There are two key ways of teaching empathy to students. First is modeling empathy to your students. I would challenge that this is the best way to teach students empathy. When they see empathy in action and are shown empathy by you, that will make a lasting imprint. Second is utilizing interventions and activities, and I will give you examples of some that you can use later on in this presentation. Why is teaching empathy important? It helps students build healthy relationships and leadership skills. Empathy requires perspective taking. What is it like to be in someone else's shoes? Good leaders realize that everyone brings their own unique story to the table. Lack of empathy and understanding can lead to judgment, biases, and assumptions. Empathy requires identifying emotions and feelings, which is very important not only to social awareness, but also self-awareness. Lastly, empathy often creates opportunities for effective communication skills, like asking clarifying questions and reflecting on what you have heard. These are the standards for the social awareness section of the Ohio Department of Education for Social Emotional Learning. As you can see, empathy is deeply engraved in this entire standard. Here are some elementary aged interventions to teach kids about empathy. First, we'll discuss the empathy puzzle and then the heart activity. This activity will encourage students to identify feelings in response to situations as well as empathic responses. Teachers could provide students with pre-made worksheets with puzzle pieces for them to put together. You could also leave some puzzle pieces blank to allow students to identify their own responses or feelings. With remote learning, there is an online puzzle maker. I have attached the link for you here. You can create a matching puzzle in which students can match feelings with situations or responses with situations. This is the wrinkled heart activity. This activity would work great during a live Zoom meeting. Explain to your students that everyone has a wrinkle-free heart starting off. When people say mean things that hurt them, a wrinkle appears on their heart. You can ask them for examples, and as they tell you, wrinkle the paper heart. Then explain that when people are nice or apologize, it unwrinkles the heart. You can explain to them that even though we make amends and say nice things to others, there are still remnants of the wrinkles. This activity helps teach kids empathy by having them look at other people's experiences and how they may be affected when other people say hurtful things. Next, we'll talk about middle school age interventions. I'll discuss an empathy worksheet and the empathy Jeopardy game. This is an empathy worksheet that can easily be adapted to remote learning by creating a worksheet for students to complete individually or be used in a large classroom discussion. Emphasize that even if a student has not had that experience or that situation, they often have experienced the feeling. This is important for building empathy and allows students to identify others' feelings and understand them at a deeper level. This next activity can be very fun for students and is a great way to teach empathy in an interactive way. I have attached a link for a Jeopardy game about empathy. You can edit the questions and responses if you want to make it more applicable to your students and previous discussions about empathy. Finally, I will discuss ideas for interventions for empathy for high school aged students, including the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire game and an empathy worksheet. This activity requires a bit of preparation, but I believe it is totally worth it. I think your students will love playing this game over a Zoom meeting. I have attached all the links you need. First, there is a PowerPoint that will play the simulation of the game. There is also an Excel sheet in which you will enter your questions and answers and upload it into the PowerPoint. You can create your own questions about empathy, including the definition of empathy, asking questions to help students identify feelings and emotions, and asking for appropriate empathetic responses to situations. You can really get creative here, and I'm sure your students will love it. I also provided information for troubleshooting. I'm sure not all of you consider yourselves to be technology wizards, so here are a few tips. When you open the PowerPoint, you will want to go to the slide shown here named Game Settings. Click the button to import your questions. I found that you need to be in presentation mode for this to work. To the right, there is a picture of what the question answer template looks like. You will fill in the questions, answers, and the correct answer here. Lastly, I included a picture of what the screen will look like when you have imported your questions and play the game. If you have any questions about how to work this, please reach out to me individually. I would love to help you. Lastly, this is an empathy worksheet that can easily be adapted to remote learning by creating a worksheet for students to complete individually or be used in a large classroom discussion, or both. Emphasize that even if a student has not experienced a situation, they often have experienced the feeling. This is important for building empathy and allows students to identify others' feelings and understand them at a deeper level. Thank you so much for watching this presentation. I hope that this is helpful for you as you create lesson plans to teach kids about empathy. I have put my contact information on this slide. Please feel free to email me about questions you have about empathy or if there's anything else I can do. Thank you.